switch live button, Sukriti. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Radhika, and a very good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to our international dignitaries. I am Mansimran Khokar on behalf of DST-Centre for Policy Research at Punjab University, Chandigarh. Welcome each one of you to today's webinar on Plant Breeders' View on Protection of Intellectual Property and Comparison of Intellectual Property Protection in the Seed Sector between India and Germany. As requested, I again request all of you to kindly mute your microphones as well as your cell phones to avoid any sort of disturbance and interference. Thank you. At the outset of today's webinar, we'd like to welcome our international dignitaries, Ms. Kirsten Schlemmer and Mr. Dieter Rucker from the Federal Association of German Plant Breeders. We're extremely thankful to them for agreeing to give this talk and take out time from their schedules. The aim behind hosting this webinar, a webinar in this domain, is to generate awareness regarding protecting intellectual property in the plant breeding sector, especially in the seed sector. Impact of intellectual property in the seed sector has been studied since long, and today we will also get a comprehensive understanding and a comparative account of the same. Without taking much time, I would like to invite our coordinator, Professor Nirmala Chongtham, our coordinator and a fervent botanist, for presenting a formal welcome address to our dignitaries. Professor Nirmala, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Mansimran. First of all, a very good afternoon to all our esteemed speaker, Mr. Dieter, Manager International Relations, and Kirsten Schlemmer, both from Federal Association of German Plant Breeders, Bonn, Germany. Faculty members, scientists, researchers, and students, ladies and gentlemen. So I, on behalf of DST-Centre for Research Policy and on my personal behalf, extend a very warm welcome to all of you for this webinar on Plant Breeders' View on Protection of Intellectual Property Right and Comparison in the Seed Sector between India and Germany. Our Vice Chancellor had to address, but he's held up, and we are expecting that he will be joining later. And property rights, that it is a legal right granted by government authorities to control certain processes and products of human intellect and ingenuity. And the ultimate goal of the legal protection is for enhancement of social welfare through access to ideas and information which are there in the process and products. And plant variety protection, or what we call breeders' right, also that is a form of IP in which a new plant variety is prevented from being exploited by others without authorization of the creator, and it encourages the development of new and beneficial plant varieties for use of farmers and consumers. And this also enhances development of agriculture, horticulture, and forestry. It is our pleasure to welcome our speakers. Mr. Dieter, first of all, thank you for agreeing to be here with us and discussing your views. And also Ms. Kirsten, she will be giving a brief idea about the overall, their institute. And so I would like to first then over to Mansimran, so that you can invite both of our speakers.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Our speaker today and the special invitee today both are from the German Plant Breeders Association, which is a registered association seated in Bonn and Berlin in Germany. It represents the interest of the plant breeding and seed trading companies in Germany. BDP, as it is known in Germany, is a non-governmental, non-profit organization and is exclusively financed by the contributions of its 130 member companies. Our keynote speaker for today is Mr. Dieter Rucker. Mr. Dieter Rucker manages international relations at the Federal Association of German Plant Breeders. He's been working with the association since last 30 years where in his capacity, he's a member of numerous technical committees of the European umbrella organization Euroseeds, as well as the International Seed Federation, which basically represents the interest of seed industry worldwide. Mr. Rucker completed his graduation from Cologne and then went on to earn a degree in agriculture and sciences from the University of Bonn. He holds immense experience in international seed projects and has worked in different countries like Ukraine, the Russian Federation, Mongolia, China, India, Turkey, and Ethiopia. Today, he will be talking about the plant breeder's view on protection of intellectual property and will also present us with a comparative view of the Indian and German seed sector vis-a-vis the IP protection. But before we listen to today's talk, we also have our special invitee, Ms. Kirsten Schlemmer, who would like to give her introductory remarks. Ms. Schlemmer is a plant breeder who is also an active promoter of innovation through protecting IP in the domain of plants. She is also from the same organization and heads the Department of Ornamental Plants. She overlooks a variety of tasks at her organization, such as breeding of ornamental plant varieties and trade of their seeds or cuttings. Through her association, her work also involves fostering safeguarding of economic rights by providing consultation and providing an optimized framework for plant breeding and seed organizations. As said earlier, her consultation services is provided to almost nearly 130 member organizations in Germany. I would now like to welcome her to present her introductory remarks. Radhika, do we have Ms. Schlemmer's presentation, or Ms. Schlemmer, would you be like to present on your own?
So I have given her presenter rights, so she can just share her screen. Over to
Ms.
you.
Schlemmer?
Unfortunately, I'm not that possible to share the screen by myself. Because I'm talking to you from another tablet and I don't have the presentation here. So it would be great if you could start it for me. And meanwhile, I have to say sorry again for my late entry. I had some problems. It's always an adventure. And the name Oskar Schlemmer you see here is not my name. It's the name of my son who has home schooling this morning. So
that's all right. We do understand. Radhika or Santosh, we run Ms. Kirsten's presentation.
Yes, Radhika, ma'am, I can say you can just give me the right and I will do it.
Sure.
Since you give it the right, you can go ahead.
Okay, ma'am, just give me.
Perfect. Maybe I can use the time to thank you once again for having us, for your interest in the German sector plant breeding activities. And you introduced me a few seconds ago. Today I'm here as part of the communication team of the BDP. And while Dieter is the expert for your specific topic today, I'm really happy to give you a short overview about the organization of the plant breeding sector in Germany. Next slide, please. This map of Germany already gives you an idea about the diversity of the private plant breeding sector here in Germany. Our members are located in every part of the country. And the orange dots you maybe recognize are the locations of BDP in Bonn and Berlin. And in addition, we are in close contact to other national associations. We work together with the European Seed Association, Euroseeds, and of course with the International Seed Federation, ISF. Next slide, please. It was already mentioned that BDP counts 130 members from plant breeding and, that's important, seed trading industry. And most of our members are small and medium-sized companies. And almost 60 of these companies are active and carrying out in own breeding programs in nearly every crop which is relevant for the European agriculture: potatoes, wheat, sunflowers, vegetables, maize, of course, and you can see all these nice little pictures here. Next slide, please. And this diversity in companies and breeding activities are also expressed in a high number of breeding programs for 115 species and more than 3,500 officially registered varieties in Germany. So the farmers have a high opportunity to choose the right variety for his location and his needs. And these numbers are also a result of the high investments in research and development of more than 15% of the income of the companies. That's quite a lot. And the next slide, please. And against that background and with the support of our membership, our focus is to optimize the framework and the conditions for our members and the whole plant breeding sector, of course. And to achieve that, we are in close contact with national authorities and governmental representatives in Germany to achieve our main goals: an effective protection of intellectual property. We want to optimize the organization of plant breeding research. We have to promote a proportionate regulation that allows the use of new breeding techniques. And we want to improve the legislation on plant breeding, plant variety protection and seed marketing. That was extremely short, but I think sufficient to give you just an idea about our surrounding here in Germany, which is maybe interesting to have in mind for the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schlemmer. That was quite an interesting introduction to what BDP does and how it undertakes all its activities. I would not take much time, and I would now like to invite Mr. Dieter Rucker for his talk. Mr. Dieter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen now.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much, Dr. Mansimram and Professor Nirmala, for your kind introduction. Thank you for having my colleague Kerstin and me here in your webinar. This is actually the first time in my professional career that I am allowed to give a presentation at a real university. I feel very much honored. I'm a humble secretary, so thank you very much for this opportunity. The topic of my talk will be Plant Breeder's View on protection of intellectual property and a comparison of India and Germany on this behalf. These are the contents of my presentation. First, an introduction. Kerstin already has explained you about the BDP, about the German Plant Breeders Association. I will speak briefly on the Indo-German cooperation in the seed sector development. There's a project going on for some years already. I will give you some information on that. And then I will give you the plant breeder's view on protection of intellectual property. Please note that I'm not a lawyer. I'm from my education, I'm an agricultural economist. So I will not go too much into legal detail. I will just try to give you the view of our companies which are operating in the seed market. Third will be the comparison of India and Germany, focusing on plant variety protection, and I will draw some conclusions in the end. Now, Kerstin has already introduced this slide. I would like to draw your attention once more to the figure in the upper right corner of this presentation. Our plant breeding companies invest 15.5% of their turnover into research and development. This is a very high figure compared to other sectors of the economy. For instance, chemical industries, automotive industries, they don't invest more than 6 to 8% of their turnover. So there is a high spending on research and development from our breeding companies, and that is what they have to earn back in the marketplace. I will come back to that detail. Now, this Kerstin has already introduced. I will now say a few words about the IndoGerman seed project. The project started in 2013 and will run until June of next year. And the partners in this project are the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare in New Delhi. And the partner on the German side is the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And the objective of the project is to bring the experts together, Indian experts, German experts, and to discuss and to further develop questions regarding plant variety protection, conservation of and access to plant genetic resources, and production of quality seeds. Seed certification in this field. Now, how does this work in practice? We have Indian guests visiting us in Germany, and we show them our facilities and how these tasks are done in Germany. And German experts travel to India and learn about the way Indians are doing their work. And the objective is for experts from both sides to learn from each other and to work together in the international variety and seed systems. It is not the case that we have the teachers on one side and the students on the other side, but it's how do I say, it's everybody is on the same level and experts are learning from each other. And the partners in New Delhi for the project are the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority, the National Bureau for Plant Genetic Resources, and also the National Seed Association of India. So it is not only a cooperation between the officials from the Variety Office and the offices for plant genetic resources. We are also looking at more cooperation between companies and in India and Germany. And in the first part of the project, we were speaking to the partners in Delhi on the national level. And in the second part of the project, what was discussed in Delhi is also transferred to regions in India. And the first project region was Telangana, and there we worked with the Telangana State Seed Organic Certification Authority, with the Telangana State Seeds Development Corporation, and also with the representation of seed industries in Telangana, that is the Seedsman Association Hyderabad. In the third and final phase of the project, there will be more project regions and the results will be transferred from Telangana also to further regions in India. And here you see the official project flyer. You see also the people responsible for this project in Germany and also in India. In India, we have Dr. Suvmini working for the project. And I encourage you, if you want further information, to contact these people and they will be happy to give you further information if that is requested. That's what I wanted to say about our German-Indian project. And I must say I'm very proud that I can be part of that project. And I've been to India several times. And I must say I've learned a lot from this project and from the different situations of the farmers and the seeds people in India and in Germany. And these different situations call for different solutions, and that is better to understand if you don't only know one system, but if you know several systems in several countries. And what I think is very important, that we all work together in the international variety and seed systems, so we have unhampered seed trade internationally, and we have a level playing field for all partners involved in the seed sector. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that no country can fulfill the seed demand only from national production. All countries rely on imports of seeds from other states, from other economies. And this international seed trade is growing every year. And we think it is very important to help agriculture to tackle the challenges that we will be facing in the next decades. And that brings me to the Breeder's View on protection of intellectual property, second part of my presentation. And I start with this slide. And it's a slide by Upof. Upof is the international organization for plant variety protection, and it offers a level plant variety protection legislation for all participating countries. And what does this have to do with the wheat yields in France? Now it's very simple. If you look at the development between 1815 and 1945, nothing much happens. Yields stay pretty much the same. But then in the 1950s, all of a sudden, the development of the yields picks up, and we go from a little over 1 ton per hectare to 6 to 7 tons per hectare. This is a phenomenal development, and it's mostly due to new varieties, to progress in genetics because of supplying agriculture with improved modern varieties. And this is a presentation for France, but you can see this development in many countries. We all know of the Green Revolution in India in the 1960s, in the 1970s, when the agricultural yields exploded and went up rapidly, allowing India to feed all its many million citizens. And this development, this is what I would like to stress here. This development is to a great part due to plant breeding, to the development of improved varieties. And that's why it is important that we organize plant breeding and the development of new varieties and to get good results in this field. And there are, in principle, two options to finance plant breeding and variety development. One principal option are state breeding institutes. You can use tax money, government funding, and work in state institutes to develop new varieties, to work on genetic improvement. And this is traditionally done in socialist systems. We have a lot of contacts to our Eastern European neighbors, Russian Federation, Ukraine, where socialist economies were transformed into more market-orientated systems in the 1990s. And in these countries, we still have state institutes working on variety development. And on the other hand, we have market economy systems where private companies invest money and work on new varieties. And those companies who invest private money, they have to earn a return on their investment in the marketplace. They have to charge royalties or license fees, and that is when protection of intellectual property comes into the picture, because it is very easy to reproduce seeds. You just put them in the ground and you can reproduce them. And we want to make sure that the breeder of the original variety gets his fair share of the seed price, so he can finance his further breeding activities. And these are two principal options. Of course, there are also mixed systems where the state with tax money does, for instance, some basic research and development of methods. But private companies, they do the actual development of varieties for the market. And in Germany, I can say we have almost 100% private companies who develop the varieties for the German farmers. There's only very small exceptions where state institutes work in this field. So what are the options for protection of intellectual property in the for seeds and propagating material? We have plant variety protection according to the international Upof system. We have patent protection, and there is also the possibility of trademark protection. We, as the German Plant Breeders Association, we see plant variety protection as the principal system of intellectual property protection for propagating material. And it's also the most widely used option in Germany and also in the European Union. And most of my presentation will be focused on plant variety protection. I will say a few words about patent protection, which is also used in for seeds and propagating material. I will address that shortly. And I will not talk about trademark protection because that's very specific. And as I said, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a lawyer. So I will mainly focus on plant variety protection, PVP. And here you see a map of the world, evidently. And if you look at the colors, at the green countries on this map, those are the countries who are members of Upof and who have ratified the Upof treaty and who have shaped their plant variety protection legislation according to the Upof system. We, as German Plant Breeders Association, we very much support Upof, and we ask all countries to become members, because then we have a level playing field all over the world. Farmers can protect their varieties according to the same system everywhere, and that will eventually be to the benefit of the farmers, because plant breeders will invest and they will make varieties available, and they will give farmers the choice to pick the best varieties for their agricultural operation. We have, as in a red color, those countries which are so-called initiating states of the Upof system, and who have at the moment not a member but an observer status. And you see that India is an observer at the moment, and we hope that India will become a full member in the near future. And I will get back to this issue later. And then there are some states which are in contact with Upof and some states which have not been touched by Upof at all so far, but those are very few. And we are happy to see the Upof system practically growing from year to year, taking up new countries in the process. So what are the preconditions for plant variety protection? In order to be granted PVP, you must fulfill 5 preconditions. Your variety must be distinct from every other variety of common knowledge in existence. Your variety has to be uniform. That means all plants of your variety must fulfill strict uniformity standards. They must all be more or less the same. And this is very important, and I will get back to this specific detail later. Varieties have to be new. If a variety has been in the marketplace for some time already, you cannot protect it anymore. You can only protect a new variety. And the DUS test, that is the test on distinctness, uniformity, and stability, this test has to be performed by a national plant variety office. It is not enough that the breeder gives a description of his variety. It must be officially tested and officially recognized that those preconditions for plant variety protection are fulfilled. And if you have PVP, if you have plant variety protection for your variety, this is a strong protection, because only the holder of the right is allowed to propagate seeds of the protected variety. You also need the permission of the PVP holder to do any processing or marketing or importing and exporting of seeds of protected varieties. All those things you may only do with the permission of the plant variety right holder. Also, to store the seeds in order for the purpose of marketing it. For instance, if you have seeds in your warehouse, it's all processed and ready to sell as seeds. You may only do that if you have the permission of the plant variety owner, to make sure that he gets the fair share of the seed price when it is sold to the farmer. But there are also exceptions to the breeder's rights. And there are compulsory exceptions and voluntary exceptions according to the Upof system. Compulsory means every country that is a member of Upof must make sure that the national legislation on plant variety protection includes these exceptions, as are acts done privately for non-commercial purposes. If you do something with seeds of a protected variety in your own private garden, you grow something, you eat it, you just look at it, no problem. You can do that. You can also experiment with the protected variety. You don't need a permission. You can do variety trials with that variety. That you can do without the permission of the variety holder. And the next one is very important, it's the breeder's exemption. Anybody may use a protected variety to create a new variety. So I can take a protected variety, cross it with other material, develop a new variety which is distinct from the initial protected variety, then I am free to protect this new material for myself, and it will become my intellectual property, my variety. And this is very important because all the breeders can work with all the protected material all over the world. They may use these varieties, cross them, select from the result, create new varieties, and that is how the best progress in variety, in plant breeding and variety development can be achieved. All the breeders work with all the best material available to them. So, and here is the big difference to patent protection. If I have a trait in a variety protected by a patent, nobody may use these seeds with a patent in it without the permission of the patent holder. And this means that varieties with patented trait cannot be used for further breeding. And at this point, you have to be very careful because imagine patents on traits are in all the available material, then the other breeders cannot use that material anymore because it's patented. And that leads to a situation where breeders can only work with their own material and may not use other material because it's patented. This is a problem because then the optimal results cannot be achieved because all the breeders only work with their material. Now, here's the main difference between plant variety protection, which we favor, and patent protection, which we are careful with. But of course, patent protection also is necessary. Patent protection is necessary so companies can invest in science, in research to develop new traits. But as I said, we have to be careful here because we want all the breeders to make use of all the relevant material. In some fields, patent protection is necessary. We agree with that. But for instance, in Germany and in the European Union, plant varieties cannot be protected by patents. Only certain traits can be protected by patents. And Those traits cannot be protected by patents if they are primarily developed from biological processes. If you develop traits by crossing varieties and selecting, those are fundamental biological processes. This cannot be protected by patents. There has to be an inventive step so you may claim a patent. Okay, there it gets complicated. That's something for lawyers. I just would like to make the point, plant variety protection is the best protection for plant varieties. That's our conviction. We also need patent protection, but we need to be careful with it. And in addition to the compulsory protection, compulsory exception to the breeder's rights, Upof also knows optional exceptions. And an optional exception is to allow the farmer the use of farm-safe seeds. That means farmers can buy seeds of a protected variety, and they use the harvest material to grow a new crop in the following year. That's what we called farm-safe seeds. And the countries may allow in their national plant protection legislation, they may allow farmers to produce their own seeds of protected varieties under certain conditions. I will get back to that detail later. Now, this is a slide I have borrowed from Dr. Prabhu. He is the chairman of the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority in Delhi. And Dr. Prabhu here practically says the same thing you saw on the last slide in the words of Upof, and this is the exception from plant breeders' rights in the words of the Indian Plant Protection Authority. And we also see here that it is not considered an infringement of plant variety protection if you use the variety for research and experimental purposes. You may also use this variety to create a new variety. And if the new variety is distinct from the protected one, you can protect it for yourself. It's the same thing Upof said, only said in the Indian context for the Indian legislation. But it is considered to be an infringement if the researcher must repeatedly use the protected varieties for the production of his seeds. If I use every year one protected variety and I cross it with another one and produce seeds and sell them, that's an infringement of the variety protection of that initial variety. If I take that variety and change it into a new variety, and for the production of the new variety, I do not need the initial variety, then it's not an infringement, and I can work with that new variety and protect it for myself. Now, I was talking several times about the fair share of the breeder on this, in the seed price. And then you may ask, what is a fair share? How much of the seed price goes to the plant breeder, to the developer of the variety? And this slide is from Euroseeds. This is our European umbrella association, the representation of EU plant breeding industries and seed industries. And this example goes for cereals. Cereals are the most important crops in Europe, in the European Union, wheat. And this is an example of wheat. And you can see here that approximately 15% of the seed price goes as a royalty to the initial breeder. You see here you have 40% production cost, cleaning, processing, seed treatment, analysis and quality control, logistics, and as you see, 15% for the owner of the variety. And we feel this is a fair share because farmers want better varieties next year and even better varieties 10 years from now. And that's what we need those 15% for. Okay, that takes me to a comparison of plant variety protection and in India and Germany. Again, this is not from a lawyer's point of view who compares all the provisions in detail. This is more from the point of view of a breeding company. If I look at India and if I consider placing my varieties on the Indian market, how do I see variety protection in India as compared to variety protection in Germany or the European Union for that matter? And I will first talk about similarities of PVP between India and Germany. We have been working with the Indian experts on DOS testing and of PVP granting, and we have found that the Indian experts work very much according to the same principle as German experts. There are some differences, of course. You work on different species in India. We don't have mango, we don't have banana. That's what Indian experts are doing. And sometimes they are using different techniques. The German Variety Office works with image analysis. They are taking images of petals, of leaves, of organs of the plant and compare the images with each other. And Indian experts, they more look at the plants in the field, actually, but the principles are the same. And I must say that the German experts, I'm not an expert on DOS testing myself, but the German experts, they do hold their Indian colleagues in high regard. They say they are doing good work in India on DOS testing, there's no doubt. And that's not different from what experts in Germany, or not much different from what experts do in Germany or the European Union or in any other Upof country, for that matter. In Germany and in India, plant variety protection is the main source of IP protection. We are happy about that. And seed industries are very much in favor of plant variety protection. That goes for the German companies, but also for the Indian companies that we have met. And they say our legislation on plant variety protection is relatively young, and it's not perfect yet, but it's a good step and it's a good thing, and we want to progress in that direction. And also the German breeders think we want plant variety protection. That's what we need. But what are the differences between India and Germany? One difference is the Indian law on PVP was passed in 2001, and the German law is old. It's from the 1950s. So there is much more experience with plant variety protection in Germany. Breeders are working with this instrument for many years. In India, it is rather new. It's a fresh law. And also different is the structure of seed industries. If we look at India, we have government institutes and corporations being active in the seed market, especially for so-called large volume, low value crops. Those are, for instance, cereal, large grain legumes, potatoes. That is material where you have to move a lot of volume and the value is not so high. And here government corporations in India are predominantly active. But you also have private companies in India, strong, good Indian companies, but they focus on the so-called low volume, large value crops. Those are, for instance, vegetables, ornamentals, where you move only very, very little volume, but it holds a large value. And here, this is where private company invest, and this is where private companies have their field of operation. And there's also another reason why private companies focus on vegetable species, especially. Vegetable species are hybrids. That means you cannot produce farm-safe seed from hybrids. So hybridization is kind of a protection system because the farmers cannot reproduce the seeds they buy. And also other actors in the market cannot simply buy vegetable seeds and produce their own seeds from it because those are hybrids and there's better protection. And the protection for the large volume, low value crops, the plant variety protection, is not so strong yet in India. So private companies are reluctant to invest because they are afraid that their investment is not sufficiently protected for those crops, where it is very easy to produce farm-safe seed. In Germany, the situation is different. I've said that already. Almost 100% of plant breeding and variety development is done by private companies, and they need protection of their intellectual property. And when I say it's 100% of private company doing this work, I must add that the private companies don't do it alone. We have also the state institutes which are and the universities which work on developing methods for plant breeding, who do important basic research, but the variety development at the very end of the value chain, that in Germany is almost 100% reserved for private companies. And this is another slide by Dr. Prabhu of the PPVFRA. And this shows one important difference between Indian law and variety protection and German law on variety protection. And the difference is, you can see here, in India, you can protect new varieties, like in Germany, any other Upof system as well. You can protect essentially derived varieties. That's a special case. I will not go further into detail here. The principle of the essentially derived varieties is part of the plant variety protection in Germany as well. But the big difference is, in India, you can protect so-called extant varieties. Extant varieties are varieties that are not new, but those are traditional varieties the farmers have been using, and the farmers have been multiplying on their own farms and exchanging with their neighbors and their relatives. And the train of thought of Dr. Prabhu and the Plant Variety Authority in India is, if the private companies take those traditional varieties and develop them into a new variety and protect that variety, and they draw income from that protection, why not protect our traditional varieties as well? They have a value. Why should the farmers who have developed those varieties over decades, sometimes centuries, not also have a right to their variety? This train of thought is very understandable and I would say very much justified, but this does not fit into the Upof system. According to Upof, you cannot protect old varieties which have been in the market for decades. That's not possible. Variety protection is limited. If I protect a new variety in Germany, I get 25, maximum 30 years of protection, and then it's free. It's not possible to have this protection for a century or for more than a century. And that's why these extant varieties do not fit into the Upof system. And there's another reason why those varieties do not fit into the Upof system. I have said that one of the preconditions of granting plant variety protection is the uniformity of the variety. There are very strict rules for uniformity. Your variety must be very narrow. All the different plants have to look the same. And if you look at these old extant varieties, there's a lot of variety in the variety. They are very broad. And if you now look at the system, for instance, you take Germany, and we have several hundred varieties of wheat in Germany. And all those varieties are very uniform, so you can distinct them from each other. They are different from any other variety. But if you now have varieties which are broad in your register, then those varieties will be overlapping. And you cannot be sure if you have certain seeds, which variety do they belong to? Because the variety are overlapping, they are too broad, they are not uniform enough. That's why this system does not fit into the Upof system, and that's why India is not a full member of Upof yet. Again, the train of thought is understandable and makes sense, but we have not yet found a way to fit this contemplation into our Upof system. And this is the other main difference, in my point of view, from the Indian law on plant variety protection to the German law or to an Upof law. Because you see here, these are the farmers' rights in the Indian plant variety protection. So a farmer is entitled to save, use, sow, resow, exchange, share, and also sell seeds of a protected variety. Now, this makes sense if you look at the structure of farming in India, where you have a lot of subsistence farmers who are operating in on very small holdings, who only have very little land available for their production. And you cannot go to them and ask them to pay royalties to a big international company for his farm-saved seeds. So this is understandable that you say those small farmers, they must be allowed to use the seeds again and to also reproduce the protected seeds and to also share them with their neighbors and their relatives and even sell them on the market. That is understandable and it makes sense, but it doesn't fit into the Upof system. If anybody can take a protected variety, produce seeds from it and sell them on the marketplace without the permission of the original rights holder, then plant variety protection is dead. You don't need to protect your variety anymore because anybody can reproduce it and sell it. So here I think we have to find a way to protect the small Indian farmers from unjustified claims. That is important, but we must also make sure that plant variety protection is strong, because only then private companies will invest in plant breeding for those crops. And I think there are solutions to this problem. I think the Upof system also gives possibilities to protect small scale farmers. But they have not been able to find a solution there. And one reason is the Upof system decides by unanimosity. That means if they want to change the system, every participating country must agree. And so it's very difficult to introduce changes in that system. And sometimes Upof, I must also say that they're a little stubborn and they stick to their principles. And I think in this case, we should find a pragmatic solution which allows small-scale farmers to continue operating as they have been operating for centuries, but also protect varieties. But this is work that still needs to be done. This is not solved at the moment. Okay, optional exception to the breeders' rights. Once more, a slide by Upof. This is an optional exception. As I said, countries may allow farmers to use farm-safe seeds. They don't have to do it. They can forbid farmers to use farm-safe seeds. Then they have to buy, then they may not reproduce protected varieties on their own farm, or you allow it to them, but you do certain restrictions. That's how it's done in Germany, for instance. For certain species, the German law allows farmers to use farm-safe seeds, but they have to pay a remuneration to the breeder. If they use farm-safe seed, they have to pay for the use of farm-safe seed. But there are also exceptions. Small farmers are exempt from this rule. So if you're a small farmer, part-time farmer, for instance, in Germany, you do less than, I think it's 10 hectares of cereal production, you don't have to pay this. But the others, they do have to pay also for farm-safe seeds. Now I'm coming to the end of my presentation. There is an intellectual property dialogue between the European Union and India, and it's scheduled for the beginning of this year. And the EU here speaks to partners worldwide for about intellectual property protection. And in this framework, our European organization Euroseeds has done a survey among seed companies in the European Union, and they ask them, if you look at India, if you look at intellectual property protection in India, what kind of problems do you encounter in India? And these are the answers by the companies. One is India should join Upof. Yeah, that's what we think too. That's what we work towards. We would like to welcome India as a new partner in the Upof system, but certain conditions have to be met and certain work needs to be done for that. Then PVP is not possible for all species in India. In Germany, you can protect varieties for all species, not in India yet. That's what the companies would like to develop. And then they say, it takes too long to get variety protection for hybrids. Sometimes it takes more than 10 years. That's a problem. And then they have to submit the parent lines of the hybrids. And breeders don't like to give parent lines away of hybrids, because if you have the parent lines, you can produce the hybrid. And so they are reluctant to give those lines away, not because they suspect the plant variety office to do illegal acts with the seeds, but the plant variety office will plant those mother lines in the field. And if they're out in the field, anybody may have access or may take access to that material, and that is very sensitive. Parent lines of hybrids are very sensitive for the breeders. And they say in India, it's only possible to protect single cross hybrids. And there are other forms of hybrids, three-way hybrids, whatever, and you can only protect those single crosses. And the companies, they say, we see a lack of enforcement of plant variety protection in the marketplace, which also is a result from the fact that Indian law is rather young and those procedures have to develop. Now time is moving. I'm getting to the conclusions. One more slide, please allow me one more slide. I will draw some short conclusion. I would say plant breeding contributes significantly to the increase of yields and quality of plant production. We need genetic progress to tackle the challenges feeding the world's population with climate change as we are facing it. Modern innovative plant breeding needs high investments. Yes, it's expensive. Modern plant breeding is expensive. And that's why intellectual property protection is crucial to earn a return on investment in plant breeding and variety development. I say it again, plant variety protection is the principal protection system for propagating material in the kingdom of plants. That is our conviction. And breeding companies will only invest in countries where legislation and business practices allow for the effective protection of intellectual property and also of enforcement in the marketplace. Well, that's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry if I took too long. I thank you very much for your attention. This is the picture of a wheat field in Germany. That's what agriculture looks like in Germany. And with this, I thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rucker, for a very descriptive talk. It was quite interesting to learn about the amount invested by the plant breeding and seed companies into R&D, 15.5%. It is definitely a huge amount. And it is also something that industries of other sectors should aim at. Hopefully, it lays a path for the private sector in other countries as well. We had a very interesting talk, and I would like to invite Ms. Sukriti Paliwal to moderate the further session of this webinar. Ms. Sukriti, please.
Thank you so much, Mansimran. The session was interesting. I would like to thank our speakers. And it is evident by the number of questions we have in our chat box. So we'll start with the first question. What kind of government incentives can be introduced for plant varieties and protection to promote investments in agriculture? Hello?
Yeah, well, I would answer to... Shall I answer now or take more questions? I answer now.
No, sir. I mean, right, sir.
What the state, the government can do is provide efficient plant variety protection. if breeders can earn money in the marketplace, they will invest in variety development. That's one option. The other option is you take tax money and you have state institutes develop those varieties. But our experience is that private companies often are more flexible than state institutes. But in principle, both is possible.
So, but if private companies will invest, if larger companies are going to invest and they are going to create an IP, won't it create a monopoly for smaller companies? They'll not be able to enter because of the costs involved.
Well, that is one of the advantages of plant variety protection. If a big company invests a lot and develops a wonderful variety, any breeder can use that wonderful variety and cross it with something else and develop an even better variety. That's plant variety protection makes sure that there is no monopoly, but even in Germany, we have a lot of small and medium-sized breeders because we have strong variety protection.
All right, okay. So there's another question that how is the seed examined to prove that it is a variety?
Those varieties are grown in the field. All new varieties are grown in the field with a reference collection of all existing varieties. You must think about trials in Germany for wheat, for instance. You have several hundred varieties in the field. And then the experts go out and look at each different variety and make sure, it's all the phenotype. We don't look at molecular markers or other techniques. It's the phenotype. You must see it with your eyes, or it must be ingredients in the variety. So it's the phenotype, and that is you need very well trained experts to really make sure that all the varieties are distinct and you don't have two of the same in your testing. So that's difficult work. Good experts are necessary. Yeah.
So a related question that if a seed variety is protected and it is mutated in a lab for a different genotype, will it still be considered protected?
If you take the new variety and you compare it to the initial variety in the field according to phenotypical criteria, and you see it's different from the initial variety, then it's not protected by the protection of the initial variety. Then you can claim a new protection. Distinctness, that's the issue. It must be distinct, phenotypically distinct from the initial variety.
And the next question is that which seeds does Germany import from other countries?
We import seeds, well, especially of species which are better produced in different countries. For instance, sugar beet. We have strong sugar beet breeding in Germany, but the seeds are not produced in Germany. They are produced mostly in Italy because they have better climatic conditions. And then if you look at vegetables, for instance, vegetable production means a lot of manual labor, which is expensive in Germany. So many vegetable seed companies, they work with countries in Asia or in Africa, and they produce the seeds there because manual labor is cheaper. Maybe growing conditions are better also, and they import seeds into the European Union and Germany. Also maize, corn. Corn rapeseed are mostly produced in more southern countries like France or even Austria. So there are many examples where the seeds used in Germany are not produced in Germany, but imported into the country.
All right. And do farmers in Germany get subsidies from the government?
Yes. There is a common agricultural policy in the European Union. There are uniform subsidies in the European Union, and it's basically paid per hectare for the farmer. So there is no the prices are according to world market level, but the farmers receive in principle subsidies per hectare.
Can I take more questions?
For me, it's fine if you as you wish.
All right. So seed industries are in favor of PVP because of value added to them. But does it benefit farmers too in some way? Or farmers have to rely on mercies of private seed industries to secure their benefits?
Now the breeders need PVP to finance their activities, but the advantage for the farmer is they get new improved varieties every year. And you say maybe the breeders take more than the farmers of the profits, but here we are in favor of a competitive system where we have many breeding companies in the marketplace and they compete with each other. And if one breeder charges too high prices, the customers will move to another. So if there's competition, if there's international competition, that's in the end to the benefit of the farmers. But what you need is you need many companies. If you in the end you only have two companies, you have a problem. But as Kerstin pointed out in the beginning, we still have 60 small and medium-sized seed companies developing varieties in Germany. So I don't see the danger of a monopoly there.
All right. So second last question. How is DUS test performed for PVP?
Well, as I said, it's done in the field. If you apply for plant variety protection, you send a seed sample to the National Plant Variety Office. They grow the variety in the field, and if they found out the variety is distinct, it's uniform, it's stable, it's new, then it will be protected.
And the last one is, what are the benefits of joining UPOV?
Well, the benefit would be to have a level playing field, because the rules for plant variety protections are the same in all Upof countries. If you go to a country that has joined Upof, you can be sure that plant variety protection is according to a certain standard. And the advantage for India would be, if you have Upof PVP in India, maybe more international companies would say, well, then we have a business case in India, then we will invest in India. Maybe they say now, we are not sure if we get strong protection, but if you say we have Upof, they say, okay, we know Upof, that's good, we invest in India. That's how the thinking goes.
So that will benefit the country.
Yes.
So these were all the questions. Thank you for answering them really nicely. I hope all our participants must be happy and satisfied with the answer that you gave. And now I would like to call Professor Nirmala for vote of thanks and concluding remarks.
Thank you, Sukriti. I'd like to congratulate and thank Dieter and Christine for such an interesting and informative talk. You covered a lot of areas, I think, which we researchers, students found some of the students, for them, it's very new. And you talked about the German Plant Breeders Association, and I feel that like Simran mentioned that you're investing such a lot on about 15% on research and development. I feel that's so great because yes, the first thing any country thinks is the agriculture. So how to feed the people enough so that they do not have any struggles. And Dieter, you have also highlighted about the plant variety protection, different the conservation, production of quality seeds, which is very important development. And the Indo-German collaborations, I think it has to go to 2022, and then your collaborations with New Delhi and Telangana, and I hope that some very concrete things for both countries would come out of that. And India is so diverse, so sometimes like in developed countries, the farmers, they have very huge lands, so they can cultivate in excess. But here in India, the farmers, they're very small land. You talked about that also. Sometimes it is very difficult for some laws to be applied when you're working, when a farmer has a very small plot and it is used for feeding his family less, and maybe he does not have that produce that much to take it to the market. And and private companies playing a big part. That's, I think, in also mentioned that private companies do not they only invest in India about for vegetables or for floriculture, so that's investment from private companies is less. And because of the companies coming forward, then the farmers must have got a lot of help from them. And so overall, I think the pitching of the private companies, it is good, but in India, it has to be worked out. There is a lot of some things which are not clear between the government and the farmers. So I think because it is diverse and people are from different stratas, the farmers, so that's one big problem which has still to be sorted out. And there must be a lot of condition in Upof also, so why India has to make that out. So still the conclusions you gave about the yield and quality production, which is very essential. And you're right in saying that modern breeding techniques is very expensive. So our farmers, they hardly have a lot of money to invest on that. That's why they are still relying on the contemporary, on the traditional breeding. So I think that it would be really good that if things work out for the betterment of the farmers as well as the society. So I would thank you. I would like to thank Dieter and Kirstine for sparing your time and being with us and sharing your knowledge with your long experience with India. And we hope that we will have interactions with you later also. When we have some doubts, we can come to you and ask and help you and take suggestions from you. So thank you, everyone, all the participants, all the faculty members, scientists, researchers, students for being here with us. And I also thank our Vice Chancellor. He was not able to join because the administration at the top, they are involved in some other things. And also my team in the center. We have been working to connect with Dieter for such a long time. So thank you, everyone. And we hope that we will have much more discussions again. So thank you. And with this, we'll close the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you to our speakers.
Bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sukriti, you can close the live streaming.
Yes, ma'am, I'm turning off.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.